All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Fluffy Misery. I'm filling in for Fluffy Temper. We're going to continue Master Huck's story today. All right, Master Huck story session 2. The sun slowly begins to creep above the horizon, and the adventurers slowly wake up. Gub begins making a light breakfast as the rest of the group packs away tents and bedrolls. Are we ready to head out? He asked the group as they finished their breakfast. It feels like it's time. Let's head out, said Praxis. The large party sets off into the swamp, led by the Bollywogs. Now we're looking for what will look like a large hill. Over time, the big guy is resting and he buries his head in the mud, Randong tells the group. Hours pass and the day grows sticky and hot. The rot of the swamp is thick in this area. The overpowering smell feels like it's sticking to their clothes. Roll me a d20 and give me an insight check. As the sun reaches its peak, the party starts to grumble about the mud and wet. They continue to trudge forward until they spy a massive hill looming in the distance. They continue their approach as quickly as the mud will allow. The hill is covered with rocks and a small grove of trees that looks less muddy than the surrounding area. The tall grasses and flowers speckling the landscape look inviting to the mud-weary party. Do you think we found him? Booma asked excitedly. I believe we have found Gar, Randonk drawled. Which way is the front? Praxis asked, poking the hill with his foot. Now that's the million gold question, my good man. I'll take, Randong said. Duke responds, I'll take my trident and poke the edge of the hill until I find an end, and then holler. The rest of you can head to the opposite side of where I'm at. That should be the other end. Duke twists his trident so it sticks side down and starts tapping away at the edge of the hill. Sounds good enough for me. I'll go the other way and do the same. Gub grabs his spear and heads off in the opposite direction. With the two tapping away at the hill, the rest of the party waits for their findings. Roll me a d20 and give me a perception check. Gub finds the humped upturn of the shell first, where he believes is either the turtle's head or his behind. Guys, I found one end, he shouts to the rest of the party. I'm coming, Gub, shouts Booma. Why don't the rest of you head to the other end and meet up with Duke? I'll take the bollywogs with me. Now that there sounds like a fine plan. Let's go, my friends, Randonk said as he motions for the group to follow Booma. Cheer up, Nicola. I bet there'll be plenty of birds on this piece of turtle. We'll find you a better one. Craxus chuckles and heads off toward Doog and the other end of the turtle. Doog, having traveled too far to hear the shouts, finds the other end of the turtle. I found an end, he bellows as loudly as he can. Craxus and Nicola are dashing to the other end when they hear Doog call out. When they finally approach the other end, they see Doog tapping roughly on the turtle's shell. Wake up! I have some wonderful greens for you to munch on for a small price. With no response from the turtle, Doog looks up and sees Nicola and Craxus approaching. I think this part is the neck, Doog says, bouncing up and down on a slight downslope coming off the hill. Well, let's see if we can wake up Gar. Craxus pulls out his sword and Gub yells, Craxus, don't! Craxus slams his sword, pointy side down, into the giant turtle. At the other end, Booma is intently staring at the mud with her finger to her temple. Are you there, my friend? They ask. There is no response from the mud. So Booma tries again, louder this time. Can you hear me? Balbara needs your help. Ouch! Booma hears in their mind, and off in the distance, their keen eyes see three small figures soaring through the air. Did something hurt you? Gar, did we find you? Booma looks worriedly at the ground as a massive mound begins to pull away from the ground. Drips of mud and plants fall to the ground in wet flops. Something bit me, Gar says slowly as he raises his head and looks behind him. I think it's gone now. What's this I hear about Balbara needing help? He focuses his large head on the party below him. We're on a mission to rescue Balbara. She has been kidnapped and taken to the fort under the magical storm, Booma says as Gar's eyes focus on her. Balbara and I have been friends for many years. If she is in danger, we should be set out quickly. Hop onto my back, and I will take you there. I will travel much quicker over this swamp. Gar uses his head to gesture over his shoulder. Thank you, Booma said as the party stepped onto the animal's back to find a good place to settle for the trip. Has anyone seen Craxus, Duke, or Gub? Booma and the Bollywogs begin moving toward the height of the turtle shell, keeping an eye out for the missing party members, as Gar stands up, rising from the muck and slime, and begins taking large steps toward the storm. I think we're moving, Nicholas says as he and the others pick themselves up from their landing spot. At least we landed on the turtle, said Gub, holding a hand out for Craxus and helping the heavily armored Leolin up. Why does the sky hate me? Doog, still lying on their back in the soft grasses, is refusing to get up. I'm supposed to be in the water, and I keep ending up in the sky. Just roll me into the nearest puddle. Quit being dramatic, Doog. Dub reaches out his hand to help Doog up. Grabbing the offered hand, Doog gets back up onto his feet. I'll be as dramatic as a flying fish needs to be. And I'll be charging double for anything I resell from this trip. Hazard pay, I'll call it. We should go find the others and let them know we made it on the ride. Where do you think they are? Praxis asks. We could ask the ride, Nicola offered. Do you speak turtle? Gub asked. They all look at each other and shake their head no. Well, I guess we'll just start walking. Praxis takes the lead and the group starts walking up the gentle hill toward the center of the turtle. The hill feels drier and a little warmer than the rest of the swamp. The sticky, wet feeling of their old surroundings has vanished. The warm breeze passing over Gar's back works on drying off the wet adventurers and their belongings while leaving a soft scent of fresh grasses in its wake. The lost party wanders around Gar looking for their friends. The sun rose to its highest and had begun to move slowly toward the horizon. We're never going to find them, said Nicola in frustration. Hey, Gar, we're looking for our friends. They were sent to the other side to find your face. Duke shouts, looking at their feet and speaking in perfect goblin. Roll me a history check. The ground beneath them paused for a moment. They are below my highest peak, near some caves, Gar replied. You speak goblin? Gub looked at Duke in disgust. I don't speak goblin. That's just the language goblins speak to me when we're trading. I guess that Gar would know it, because the goblins always hang around the giant turtles. With a brief pause, Duke continued. But you're a goblin. Why don't you speak goblin? Duke responded briskly. I wasn't raised by goblins, Duke, so I don't speak goblin. Every goblin isn't born knowing how to speak goblin. They have to learn and be taught by their parents. Gub rolls his eyes. We should get to the center of the hill and find the rest of the group. He points to the top of the hill in the distance. The party began walking toward the center of the hill, Duke and Gub still arguing over how language is learned. Praxis listened in obvious amusement. Roll me a d20 and give me a perception check. Rocky surface. The smell of a wonderfully cooked stew wafted over the campsite. Well, there they are. I said and I said they'd make it to us. Randonk stood from the stirring pot over the fire to greet the group. Where did you guys go? We were waiting all day. I was worried you'd been tossed off guard and didn't make it back on when we started moving. Buma, although she sounds worried, has not left their seat at the fire. So worried you asked Gar to wait for us? Praxis said, suspicion clear in his voice. Not that worried. I saw where you landed. What did you do to our poor Gar? I'm not talking about it. I don't ever want to talk about the sky again, Duke says, eyeing the crystal-covered pillar. Craxus stabbed him with his sword, Gub said dryly. What's in the stew? Nicola asked worriedly. We caught some pheasant for you. We saw how much y'all liked birds, so we got y'all a whole heap. We put some in the stew for you. Randonk pulls 5 birds from his pack and hands them over to a horrified Nicola. Seeing Nicola's horror, Buma stands up from their perch by the fire and walks over to him. I'll take those, they said, turning to Randonk. I've got a bigger bag. Nodding his head with understanding, Randonk walks back to the fire to tend to the poultry-flavored stew. He killed all those birds, Nicola started. I know, but I'll eat them. Birds do eat birds, you know. Buma pats their feathered hand on Nicola's shoulder. Birds eat birds, Nicola repeated as he stares off into the grasslands in front of them. While Nicola receives his gift, Duke walks over to the crystal holding pillar with Craxus. The rough pillar is a soft gray stone. The multifaceted crystals are just jut out at odd intervals, some sticking a few inches out from the stone while others remain deeply buried, with just one face peeking from beneath the surface. They hear a soft hum as they approach. Now there is something worth flying for, Duke said, rubbing their hands together. I have to agree. How do you think we get them out? Probably a hammer, sharp stone, or a knife might do it. With the right leverage. Duke rubs their hands together in grief. Let's get started. They pull out a knife from their belt and place it between the crystal and stone. I could just hit it really hard, Craxus offered. Putting their knife back, Duke waves at the stone. Just be careful not to break too many. Craxus pulls his sword out of its sheath and prepares to hit the pillar with all his might. Roll me a d20 and give me an insight check. A boom shakes the camp as Craxus' sword hits its mark. The explosion topples him backwards and into the grass. The crystals remain securely in the pillar. Buma and Nicola jump up from their seats around the fire. Craxus, are you okay? Buma hollers and rushes over to their fallen comrade. He's fine, Duke says, not even looking behind them. They grab their dagger and line it up gently between the crystal and the stone. Maybe a little more finesse, they say as their dagger finds its grip. They gently push against the stone. I know it's a little early, but roll a d20 and give me a constitution saving throw. Why? Because I paused the story and now you're dying to know if Duke blows up. You're going to take 3 points of psychic damage while you wait impatiently for me to get back to the story. You can feel your mind being filled with anger the longer I stall. The crystal gently pulls away from the stone. Duke holds it aloft, admiring the way the setting sun shines through the blue glass. Anyone else want some? They begin gently pulling 4 more stones out of the pillar. The rest of the party is tending to Praxis, who has a headache and a few more bruises now, but is otherwise alive. Placing 3 of the stones on their pack for later sale, Duke studies the stone. It has to be magical, or it wouldn't have sent cracks as flying. With further study and finding nothing of value in the study, Duke takes the crystal between their hand and smashes it with the intention of adding it to a bottle of water to sell as a very expensive fairy water. The crystal shatters easily in their hand and the world falls away. Duke is left in a sea of white. Nothing to see for miles save the white and a slightly darker white on the horizon. Why am I flying again? Duke mutters to himself. What do you seek? A small female voice breaks out of the white void. The sound is like a melody of raindrops on the windowsill and dances across Duke's ears. We are looking for Barbara. She has been kidnapped, Duke said, looking around for a face in the nothingness. A vision of a screaming woman in tattered robes being tortured on a stone table appears before Duke. The torturer cuts fingers and breaks bones until the woman cries out no more. She appears dead. The vision continues and shows the next day. The woman looks as if she's dead, but is still chained to the stone table. A man in wizard's robes approaches, and the light of a spell reaches from his fingertips to the woman's chest. The woman is awakened by the spell and begins screaming. She is tortured again, as she was the day before, and dies again. You should not let her die again. A great evil will be released if she is allowed to die again. The musical voice fades into the white, and the white fades into night. Duke is left standing in the early evening, staring at their hands and broken crystals. Duke! Duke! Gov is shaking Duke's shoulder frantically, trying to shake Duke out of their trance. I'm here! I'm here! Duke shakes the vision from their eyes. I think I saw Barbara. They keep torturing her and killing her in the fort. The vision told me if she dies again, a great evil will be released. Gar, how much longer before we get there? Uma asked, touching her temple. I'll go quickly. We'll be there before tomorrow evening. Hold on, Gar replied. The party feels the breeze pick up, but no additional movement is felt by the group. Does anyone want a crystal? Duke asked. I'll take one. I was toppled for it. I might as well hold on to one. Praxis reaches out his hand and Duke hands him one of the crystals out of their bag. Careful when you crush it. It packs a heck of a punch, Duke said as he closes up the bag. Y'all gonna stop messing around with rocks and grab some grub? Randonk said from his place by the fire. The rest of the Bollywogs were already settling in for their meal. Don't mind if I do, good sir, Duke says as he walks over with the group. They all sit down by the fire, take a seat, and a bowl. I'll just sit over here and make some more of these box. I've almost got this one done. Nicholas sits near the fire, avoiding the poultry soup, and begins tinkering with the metal and wooden figure. After dinner, the group spreads out their bedrolls and wander the area. Duke is gathering reeds and flowers to make baskets. Nicola is working on his machine. Gub is sharpening his sword. Booma is scouting the landscape for fresh meat. Craxus is exploring a nearby cave, and the Bollywogs are chatting by the fire. One brings out a string instrument and begins to twang out a small tune. The sun begins to set, and the breeze turns cool. The party returns to camp and settles in for bed. In the middle of the night, Craxus is awoken by the blue whisper that had been plaguing him over the past few nights. Its gentle touch guides him up and out of his bedroll. He follows it to the cave he had explored earlier. As he approaches the cave, he stumbles and bumps into a wall, the crystal shattering in his coat pocket. He is surrounded by a white light, and a voice calls out to him. What are you looking for? The gentle voice sings in his ears. Home. I feel like I don't belong here, like maybe I've never belonged here. He sighs into the white. Let me guide you home. The voice slowly moves and begins to form the outline of a glowing blue Leolin, her thick, rich mane cascading over her well-armored shoulders. She reaches out her hand and Craxus takes it. She leads him into the white horizon. The party wakes as the sun touches the horizon and notices the absence of their friend. They search the area and find his armor lying at the mouth of the cave. He had been searching the cave he had been searching the day before. The armor gleams as if it had been kissed by magic, and small speckles of crushed crystal dot the surface and the surrounding ground. Nicola gathers the armor and packs it away. They searched for evidence of the direction he took, but with no note, they knew they would never figure out where he had gone or why he had left. The sudden disappearance of their new friend had left everyone shaken. They still think of him often in silent moments, and every time they need someone strong to lift something. They hope he found what he was looking for and finds the great adventure every hero dreams of. Knowing there was nothing more they could do, they collect their belongings, clean up their camp, and continue on the trip to save Balbara. How much longer until we get here? Holding her finger to her temple, Booma asked Gar. I should get us there by midday today. Plenty of time to save Balbara before that vision comes true. Well, there's no need to get all stressed about it. It's going to take time to get where we're going. I'm going to collect supplies, so when we get where we're going, I've got something worth selling. Duke sets off across the turtle and gathers supplies to make baskets and blown glass figurines. Roll me a d20 and give me an insight check. That sounds like a great idea. I'm going to keep working on the box. That way, when we get where we're going, we have a little extra support when we need it. Nicola finds a stump to sit down on and starts working on his little machines. Booma and the Bollywogs decide to go hunting for supplies and meat. They set out across the turtle in search of birds and edible plants. The sun continues its journey across the sky and the day warms. The group is grateful for the soft breeze that dances across the surface. The group is still in a somber mood, and they finally wander back to the camp. They sit in silence while working on their various projects. We are getting closer to the fort, Gar announced. It's just over this ridge. If I come any closer, they'll know you're coming for sure. He stops and hunkers down into the mud. Thanks for the ride, Gar, said Booma. Can you wait here for us in case we need you? I will do that. If you find yourselves overrun, give me a sign. We will shoot a flaming arrow, Duke begins. We will not light this place on fire, Duke, says Booma. Don't you think it's too wet to burn? Gub chimes in. I still think it's better safe than sorry. Booma is refusing to change their mind. Why don't we just use one of the bollywogs to run a message? Nicola adds his opinion to the fray. That's actually a good idea. I see some trees up ahead. It looks like the fort is surrounded by them. We can post the bollywogs at the front gate in the tree line, and if they see things are going horribly wrong, we can have one run over and tell Gar. Booma looks to the bollywogs for agreement. That we can surely do. Randunk looked at his men, and they began sneaking closer to the fort gate. The group quickly moves toward the fort. As they approach, they see a towering spiked fence that is surrounding tents of all sizes. The fort is surrounded on three sides by dense trees and vegetation and the fences. A steep cliff borders the backside of the fort, and a very long drop down into an angry body of water. Above them, the angry storm rages overhead, lightning striking clouds and empty sky, but not a single drop of rain falls. I could approach the gate as a salesman and keep the guards occupied, while the rest of you go around back and see if you can slip past the wall on the back side. Duke starts rummaging through their belongings to see what might pique the curiosity of the soldiers. How are we going to get past the wall and the cliff? Gubb asked. I could fly you. Well, you and I, past the wall. Well, behind the wall, not over it. If I flew over it, someone would see me for sure, Booma said, turning to Gubb. That might work. I'll go with Duke and act like their helper. Nika looks at Duke rummaging around their bag. I can use the box to blow up and get everyone's attention so you can get in unnoticed around the back and hopefully get Balbara and get out. That would be a fine idea. Let's get moving. Duke collects their newly organized inventory, adds the box Nicola is handing them, and the pair head for the gates. Gub and Booma move quickly to where the wall meets the cliff. The dense brush in the swamp makes travel difficult. When they reach the edge, they peek around to see how many guards are on the other side. I see some guards, but they're not close, said Booma. I think I can get us over there without anyone noticing. They don't look like they expect anyone to come this way. I think we should tie you and me together in case you drop me. Gub pulls out some rope and ties it around himself and hands the other end to Booma. That's a good idea. It looks a little windy over the edge. Booma ties the other end of the rope to her waist, pulls Gub into her arms, and hops off the side of the cliff. The wind at the edge slammed into Booma. For a moment they flailed, trying to right themselves, and lost their grip on Gub. Gub dropped and let out a yell before the rope caught him. The sudden loss and gain of weight caused Booma to drop again, the rope digging into their skin as they desperately pull against the weight, so the pair don't plummet down the cliffside. With a final pull, Booma lands over the cliff's edge. Gub, bruised but safe, is beside them. Someone had to have heard that, said Gub, looking around for guards and ducking behind some crates. The rope tugged at Booma's waist. I don't see anyone looking this way, except for those people in those cages over there. Booma unties the rope from their waist and tosses it back to Gub over the crates he had ducked behind. He quickly puts the rope away and peeks over the crates to see the cages Booma was talking about. The prisoners were gaunt, and their clothing bloody, bruises and cuts covering their bodies. A taxibar was the closest to them. His yellow and red fur was bloodstained, and he was staring at the walls, as if looking for something beyond them. A purple-skinned dark elf was sleeping in the next cage over. She had the frame of a fighter, but looks recently starved. In the last cage, the most handsome orc the pair had ever seen stood staring at them. Although, despite his great size, he looked as though he had never held a weapon in his life. If we save them, they might be able to tell us where Balbara is, Buma said. Gub slowly came out of hiding to stand by their side. I hope the others give us a good distraction soon. It looks like there's a training ground in front of the prisoners. Gub points to a row of men shooting arrows at the targets about 20 feet from the cages. At the front of the garrison, Doug and Nicola make sure the bollywogs and Gar are ready. Doog takes their salesman stance, hands on their round stomach, leaning back slightly as they approach the front gate. My good sirs, I've traveled these swamps at great danger to myself to bring you the finest wares, they bellowed. Nicholas walking slightly behind them, doing his best impression of a pack mule. Halt! The guard yells. Don't come any closer. We can trade from here if you prefer, but let me send you out a sample of one of my best-selling children's toys. Doog waves at Nicola to hand over the small Vox Seeker. Who is that behind you? The guard yells across the distance. Oh, him? Doog nods her head at Nicola. That's just Nicola, my servant. He's not the brightest, but he can carry quite a bit. Duke presents the Vox Seeker to the guards, who are having a difficult time seeing it at this distance. We don't need a children's toy, the guard says. Someone in there has to have a family back home. Watch what this simple toy can do. Duke sets the Vox Seeker on the ground and it wobbles over to the guards. Any child would be proud to have this walking toy. The guards, seeing the harmless toy walking toward them, take a more relaxed stance and start murmuring to each other about their various needs. Do you have any rope? Potions? Rations? The guards call out their needs and start to motion Duke and Nicola closer. Duke and Nicola, knowing the Vox Seeker is going to blow up when it hits that wall behind the guards, gives the signal to the Bollywogs to call for Gar and slowly make their way to the guards. The Vox Seeker wobbled past the guards and right into the wall. For a moment it did nothing while Duke and Nicola waited in anticipation. Maybe I made it wrong, Nicola began. I'm new to this creation thing. With those last words, the Vox Seeker spun and shot out a fireball out of its top. The fireball hit the nearest two guards and sent the other guards running. We're under attack, they call out. To the gates! I hope that was distracting enough, Duke said as they readied their trident. I think it was, Nicholas said, readying his sword and pointing it quickly at the approaching garrison. Buma jumped at the noise of an explosion. When they got their bearings, they saw the guards running toward the gate. I think that's our cue, Buma said and ran over to the cages, Gub close behind her. Help me get these unlocked, Buma said as they started pulling at the locks. I'm not too good with locks. Do you have a lockpick? Gub said, feeling around in his pockets. Buma starts shaking the cage door, pulling and pushing to try to get it open. Then Gub noticed the rope. They're just tied shut, he said to Buma, pointing at the rope. You've got to be kidding me. They don't even lock the doors? Buma and Gub made quick work of the ropes, and the first prisoner was freed. Thank you. Standing, the handsome orc towers over the pair. My name is Warsaw. They captured me while I was on my way to the Jagao Games. Have you seen a woman named Balbara? Gub asked. There is another woman prisoner. They took her into the tent over there. Warsaw points to the large tent near the cages. There are two guards standing at the front flap, the only guard who haven't rushed to the front gate. I don't like it in there, he said nervously. Help us open these other cages, Puma said, hurrying over to the cage with the taxibar. They make quick work of the next cage. The red and orange taxibar approaches the gate slowly. Thank you, he says. My name is Xavier. Have you seen my cat? They took me in, but she got away. No, I haven't seen a cat, Booma said, moving to the last cage. The third cage opens and the purple-skinned drow gets to her feet. Thank you. My name's Mila. What happened at the front gate? Those are just our friends causing a distraction, Gub said. Do they need help? Wait, I might need a weapon to help. They took our belongings when they captured us. We should go find them, Mila said, looking around for where her belongings might be. We'll get your stuff, but first we need to save Balbara. The the future telling stone said that if she dies again, it would be really bad. And we have the distraction to help us, Gub said, slowly making his way to the guarded tent. The rest of the group followed him closely, keeping an eye on the guards and making sure they weren't seen. Gub gets to the first guard and hits him with a sword. The guard turns in surprise and stares in shock for a moment before drawing his sword. The second guard turns and draws his weapon and begins advancing on Gub. All right, so we'll call that quit for this story hour. Somebody's getting antsy. We need to play.